Hey, Trailblazers. Today we're with Justin Montgomery, and we're talking about how you can turn your professional expertise into an online course that can actually qualify for continuing education credits for professionals. So stick around.
If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer Podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now let's get to it with today's guest.
Welcome, Justin. We're excited to have you with us today. I think this is quite an interesting conversation. We talk a lot to course creators and coaches, and I mean, Todd and I have talked a lot on how to create good offers and courses and all of that good stuff. I think it's kind of interesting and really cool to think about this from the standpoint of CEUs. So back in the day, I was a nurse. Todd used to be a teacher. We both had this requirements that we had to get CEUs, and it's very tantalizing as a business owner because there's an incentive, right? There's a higher incentive for people to make those kinds of purchases, to invest in themselves. So I'm super excited for this conversation today. Why don't you come on out and let the audience know a bit more about you and where all this comes from?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on here. Yeah, so I'm a nurse practitioner by training, so very similar to you. Yeah, and about 5 years ago, I was working in the field as a nurse practitioner, exchanging my time for dollars, seeing patients, grinding away. And I really wanted to build a business that was passive in nature where I could get my time back essentially. And I was in the medical space and I knew that we had to get a certain amount of continuing education credits a year to maintain our license. I knew doctors had to, lawyers had to, all these different people had to. And so the light bulb went off in my head. Hey, this is like a requirement. Like, this is a guaranteed business. Like, these people have to have these products to maintain their profession, their job. So I decided to start a business called the Elite Nurse Practitioner. And the Elite Nurse Practitioner was my continuing education business. And what we did was we taught nurse practitioners how to start their own medical practice, because I own some medical practices as well. And so I knew how to do that. And so I decided to translate my knowledge into creating courses on teaching other nurse practitioners, physician assistants, doctors, chiropractors, et cetera, on how to start niche clinics. So like weight loss clinics, hormone replacement therapy clinics, IV infusion clinics, those sorts of things. And so we taught people how to do that. So we provided the business education as well as the clinical education. And then we attached CE hours to those courses, which essentially allowed those courses to become a tax write-off for the nurse practitioners buying it. Most nurse practitioners, most professionals in general, nurses, doctors, teachers, lawyers, et cetera, have continuing education stipends given to them by their employers. And so most of the people who were buying my courses weren't even spending their own money. They were just spending the money that was given to them by their employers, right? And so I started doing this and it just took off. So basically I scaled and grew that business to an 8-figure valuation, and it allowed me to retire by the age of 38 years old. I'm 41 now. So here I am.
So I think that sounds awesome. How do you actually go about doing that? How do you tap into that market and get CEUs attached to what you're doing?
So getting a CEU accredited is really not that difficult. It's more or less a pay-to-play game. I mean, it's really not that complicated. They put it on this pedestal thinking that it's an extremely difficult thing to do, and it's really not. You just pay these accreditation organizations a fee, which can be anywhere between $500 to $10,000. It just really depends on what kind of profession you're targeting. Getting like AMA accredited, where you're going to like target doctors, for example, that's going to be a lot more expensive than probably like teachers or nurses. So you basically pay these people a certain amount of money. You tell them what they want to hear. and you give them, it's just back and forth. You just basically, they tell you, hey, provide this for us. You provide it for them. You just use Chat GPT for all the answers. You don't even really have to do anything. Um, I just consulted with a client of mine. I help people start CE businesses now. And so I just consulted with someone who's getting accredited within the nursing space, and he hasn't actually replied to these people like personally. Every single response has just been through Chat GPT. He's like, this is the easiest. Like he's just literally telling them exactly what they want to hear, just using Chat GPT basically. And he got accredited in 2 months and $6,000 later. Like, and now he can attach CE to his courses. So it's really not that hard of a process. You basically just determine what profession you're going to target, look at what accrediting organization gives the CE credits, the CE hours to those professionals, find that organization, and on their website, there's an application. You fill it out, you send it to them, they get back to you, and the process begins. It can take anywhere between 2 weeks to 6 months. It just really depends on organization.
So when you're applying, do you know if you typically need to be certified in that profession or licensed in that profession in order to get the accreditation?
You do not. And so I know a lot of continuing education course entrepreneurs, if that's what you want to call them, that aren't even a licensed professional. They just own the CE business, the course business itself. And they utilize other professionals to create the content for them, to create the courses for them, and they use their credentials on the application. So whenever you are applying for that CE accreditation, there has to be someone in that field on the application as your education director, essentially, like your director of education for the organization. So if anyone out there is listening and you want to start a CE business, continuing education business targeting a specific profession, you don't have to be that profession. You just need to find someone who is, pay them a certain amount of money, use their credentials, and that's it. It's not hard.
That's awesome. Question, because my wheels are spinning as you say that. So if you're looking at CEUs for nurses, so like registered nurses, is the credentials good enough to be at the registered nurse level, or do the credentials need to be like at an NP level or higher than what you're going to do?
No, just as a nurse, it's fine. You don't have to have like a PhD or whatever. I mean, a registered nurse wouldn't be able to apply for like the American Medical Association.
Right.
You need it.
But for nurse CEUs.
Correct. Yeah. For nursing. Exactly. Yeah.
And then if you're using somebody else as your education director, do they need to be perpetually connected to the business, or could they just be on there just for the application?
They would need to be there for an ongoing basis. Now, what do they do? Practically nothing, but their name is on the application. Their name is on the accreditation. You pay them, you throw them a bone, give them $1,000 a month or whatever. So they don't really do much. Now, there are some certain standards that have to be maintained for the accreditation. And so you have to basically report every quarter to these accreditation organizations, like your test scores, the survey results, how many students have you had, those sorts of things. And there's usually like some different like little mini applications that you thought, little reporting sheets. Every accreditation organization is a little bit different, but in general, this is the kind of the same flow. And so that person who you have as your education director in quotation marks, they would usually have to like sign off on it and put their name on it. And so, I mean, there's no liability for them. It's just an easy paycheck.
And then as far as the type of courses that you're creating, then how do you figure out what types of courses to create that people would actually buy and register for?
So with Pro Course Start, which is the business that I have now where I teach people how to do this, there's basically 3 models I've kind of identified for creating a continuing education course business. The first model is where you just offer CE hours and the information in the course really isn't that important. So the value in the product lies in just the CE hour, the CE credit. Like no one really cares about the information in it. They just need their hours. Every professional is guilty of doing this. You just buy some cheap $50 CE course. You can get 5 hours so you can renew your license. You don't pay attention to it. You just click next. You just click next so you can just get your hour, right? The value in that kind of product is just the CE credit or the CE hour. Okay. So that's kind of basically the model 1. The second model is where you provide actual, true, valuable information that is transformational for the professional. They don't care about the CE. They actually care about the information you're teaching them. And so that's a little bit more of a traditional course business where people actually want to learn what you're teaching. With the elite nurse practitioner, the CE business that, basically made me a multimillionaire, people wanted the value. They didn't care about the CE because they wanted to learn how to start their own practice. They wanted to get out of the rat race. They wanted to build their own business. So they wanted the actual information. They didn't care about the CE. The CE was the cherry on the top, right? Then the third model is a hybridization of both of those. That's what you want. That's the model that you want, is you want the hybridization of both of those. If you can do that, that's how you build $1 million course business. So how do you find out what's needed and what's not? You have to do some market research. You have to kind of get into some online communities and start looking at what people's pain points are. Go into Facebook groups, go into message boards, go into subreddits, etc., and see what people are complaining about. Find a problem within the profession and then develop a solution for it, right?
My brain is spinning on all the people that we've gotten to talk to over the years and all the courses they've got and the expertise and how I could see that working. I could see this working. We actually had a client years ago. She was launching her course to teach nurses how to convert a house into a long-term care facility and set it all up that way and run it yourself. And it's like $5,000 a bed per month, and how to create those types of businesses. To me, that sounds very much like something that would hit sort of the hybrid model of people actually wanting it and it being helpful for CEUs and at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they want that information. And then if they can get a tax write-off for it, they can get their employer to pay for it, that's a win. And their employer has no idea that they just paid for a course that's going to teach them how to start a business and they're going to quit.
Now, as far as structuring the course and how do people get access and all that, like, are there certain standards as far as, is this something that people just read through? Is it a video course? Are there downloads? Like, how do you decide how to actually structure the program?
So most of the accreditation organizations for offering CE don't really have a standard. Like, it can be really just about anything that you want. So it could be literally a podcast that you do that's 1 hour long. And at the end of it, they take a quick quiz and they get 1 CE hour. It can be an article. It can literally be anything that you want it to be. So in general, people find higher value in an actual video kind of course, right? I mean, you could write an ebook, and attach 4 CE hours to it. After they finish it, they take a little quiz and they get their CE. You could do that, but that's not very high value. People want to watch a video. They want to listen to you talk, so the higher value courses are definitely more of the video structure kind of courses, very simple, right? You just record some videos, you upload it to Kajabi or Teachable or whatever, and they just go through it and they take a, test at the end of it. And that's basically it. It's not really any much different than a traditional course business.
So there does need to be some sort of an assessment at the end in order to know if they actually went through it and learned everything, right?
Correct, right. There has to be a test or a quiz or something. And most of these accreditation organizations don't really set a standard on that. So like, it could be 10 questions. I mean, it could be really nothing. It could be 10 questions. They take that, and then there's always going to be a survey at the end of it. Did you find value in this? What was the top thing that you learned? Just kind of really generic kind of questions like that. And then that data just gets pooled into the LMS basically, and you can just access that data on the back end and just click, download an Excel or whatever, and that's what you would send them on a quarterly basis.
Now, as far as that reporting with the accreditation, do they look for anomalies like, oh, is everybody getting 100%? Is that suspicious? Or do you want to make it kind of a tough test so not everybody's getting 100%?
No, they don't really care. There's not going to be any red flags. They can't really look at your back end. They're just going to take what you give them. So like, they're not going to dig into the back end of Kajabi or Teachable or whatever it is and actually verify what you told them. So it doesn't really matter.
I'm curious, are there any sort of data requirements beyond keeping their information and their scores, or how long do you have to keep it? Is there data protection things you have to think about because you're gonna have licensing numbers or anything? Is there anything like that people have to think through?
No, not really. I mean, most of these course hosting platforms, Kajabi or Teachable, I just keep going back to those two just because those are the ones I'm really familiar with and they're easy. I mean, they're encrypted, so like, you don't really have to worry too much about protecting that data. Most of the time, people aren't going to actually put in their license number and whatnot. They don't really need that. You just need their name. So when they finish the CE, with Kajabi, for example, they take the test and then a certificate gets, just automatically populated and it just has their name on it with the amount of CEs on it. So there's really nothing to be too concerned about from a data standpoint outside of any other kind of traditional business where you want to, protect your customers' data.
So I know in the past, I mean, both Leah and I, it's been over a decade now since either of us have worked in those professions. But back then, what we used to do is we had magazines or books that we flipped through that had all the courses and things like that. Is there a way that you need to know to get listed in something like that? Or are there other places to get listed now online? Or how do you actually market something like this?
So marketing a CE business is the number one function of the business, right? I mean, it's just like any other online digital business. I mean, marketing is going to be your number one function. And so what you're referring to was, back in the day, 10, 15 years ago, you would get a little booklet in the mail and you can fill it out and you mail it to them and then they mail you the certificate. I mean, that's dead. No one does that anymore unless you're some boomer or something who's 55, 60 years old or, like no one does that anymore. So getting your CE business out in the world, it's a marketing game. You have to go through the same kind of processes as you would with most other traditional e-commerce kind of businesses. So, you have organic traffic, SEO based stuff, content creation, building an audience, paid ads, etc. You just get the word out on there. I mean, there are some places where there's some directories, you could be listed on like maybe a board of nursing website or, board of medicine as a preferred vendor or something like that. But most people aren't going to those sites for this anymore. They see it on social media or they just do a quick Google search.
Okay. So there's not a big difference between regular course marketing world and the CEU course marketing world?
Not really, no. I think that the big thing that people overlook is building an audience. I think that just because they think it's a CE business that the demand will automatically be there, and that's not going to be true. Like you still have to build that audience and whatnot. So with more traditional CE route, if you were just selling generic courses and just attaching CE to it, you don't really need to build an audience for that because no one's following you for any kind of valuable content, right? But like with procoursestart.com, the business that I have now, and then the Elite Nurse Practitioner, it's very content driven. I write articles, I record videos about business topics and things like that, building an audience, building an email list, going about the more traditional routes.
Yeah, I could see a lot of benefit in that audience, even more of a benefit than everyone needs an audience. Let's be real. Typically speaking, people are going to keep their licenses. It takes a lot. Even when people change careers, they start businesses, they do other stuff. Most of the time, they've worked hard for that license and they want to keep it. And if you've become a reliable source, you're putting out different content, new courses yearly or whatever, that sounds awesome. But that sounds like you're going to have a great audience ready to buy more from you as you can, as time goes on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's why you have to have that email list. You always got to be whispering in their ear. You know what I mean? They always have to remember that you exist. They don't need CE throughout the year. They only need CE, once a year, 10 hours or 20 hours or whatever it may be. So like, you always want to constantly just be whispering in the back of their ear. So when the time comes that they need the CE, they say, oh, hey, yeah, I remember Justin's business. That's where I'm going to go to get my CE. You know what I mean?
Do you ever do physical mailers to like hospitals or schools or places where the professionals work? Do you ever do that?
I did it one time and it was an epic failure. Like it was just a total waste of money. It didn't hit. Yeah. I think the entire environment is just completely shifted. It's predominantly digital in nature. I mean, even as a nurse practitioner, every once in a while, I'll get something in the mail for a CE event or something. I just throw it in the trash. I don't need that right now. And so I think that most people just go strictly online when they want to find the CE. Or they see your ad.
What about scraping for emails? A lot of times professionals will have their emails on their business. For example, like a school website will have a lot of times the teacher's emails right on there. Could you do something like that where you're scraping for emails and just cold emailing people?
Yeah, I've actually done that. So I went to like Upwork.com and hired someone, in Pakistan or wherever in India, paid them, $3 an hour or whatever it was. And I told them exactly what I wanted. Like, I want you to find these kinds of medical practices throughout the country and I want you to give me the administrators or the provider's email address. I want you to provide me a huge Excel sheet of all this stuff. Took him about a month. This was before the days of AI. This was probably 2020, 2021 before it really, really took off. So he was able to provide me, I think it was like 7,500 email addresses, something like that. It was actually quite a bit. And I created just an email campaign. I kept it separate from my real email list. And I didn't want to get blacklisted and whatnot. You know what I mean? I created a campaign targeting those people. I mean, 50% unsubscribed, pretty much like that. But it ended up costing me $300 or $400 for the list, and I ended up generating $5,000 or $6,000 from it. So it was totally worth it.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So something like that can still work. Now, with these continuing education courses, professionals need to have these credits every like 5 years or so. You need like 30 credits or whatever it is, right? So are you constantly creating new courses, or do you just still have the same courses that you're always marketing to the same people?
Yeah, you need to be you need to be creating constant new products as much as you possibly can. Just because if you just have just a handful of flagship products, people take it, they learn the information, they get their CE. There's really no long-term value there, right? So you want to try to extend the long-term value of your customers as far as you possibly can. I mean, I had people with the Elite Nurse Practitioner that have literally bought almost every single course I've ever developed. And I like look at it, I'm like, they've almost given me $30,000. Like, my Lord. like, and so it's about the value though. If it's just for the CE alone, then, you can crank out courses for CE by itself. So if you get accredited as an organization to offer CE, you could literally just use a combination of ChatGPT, Gemini, and a slide deck maker like Gamma or something like that. You can literally pump out generic CE courses in an hour. I mean, you can literally pump them out just one after another. You just attach CE to it, upload it, and just start selling them. I mean, you could literally pump out probably 20 CE courses in a matter of a week if you wanted to.
So do you have to get every course approved, or do you become an approved company and all of your stuff is approved?
There's different routes to go about it. Okay. The first route is getting accredited as an organization, as a company. Okay. That's the process. That's the most expensive route and the more lengthy route. And that can take anywhere between 2 weeks to 6 months, just depending on what organization you're getting accredited with. Like, I know, for example, there's a certain group of therapists, I think it's behavioral analysts, and you can get accredited with that organization in 2 weeks. Literally 2 weeks. You pay them a few $1,000, you fill out the application, and you're accredited. It's just a total pay to play game. Other organizations take 3 to 6 months. It's just back and forth with them. So you get accredited as an organization. If you get accredited as an organization, you can attach CE to whatever you want without any kind of approval, as long as you follow their standards and their guidelines. Okay. So that's option number one. Option number two is you can become accredited individually for each course through those accreditation organizations. It's a lot cheaper. It's a lot faster. So if you want to just create a course and get it accredited real quick, it's like $500. You send it to them. They take a look at it. They stamp it. Boom, you can offer CE. Or you can borrow someone else's accreditation. And so what that's called, it's called joint providership. So you use another organization's accreditation to attach the CE to your courses. That's the fastest route to do it. You can have that. You can literally do that in a week or two. You pay them like $2,000 and they allow you to attach CE to your course for a period of 2 years, as an example. So the barrier to entry is pretty low, really.
And then as far as pricing your courses, how do you decide how much to charge for your courses?
It's a good question. So each profession is going to differ greatly. How much a nurse is going to pay for a course versus a lawyer or a neurosurgeon is going to be vastly different, right? A mergers and acquisitions lawyer will pay $10,000 for a course. An RN is not going to pay $10,000 for a course. You'll be lucky if you can get a couple $100 out of it. So it really just depends on the profession. So you just got to do a little bit of market research to kind of see what the going average is. Just look up what other CE businesses are charging, that sort of a thing. So you just do some basic general market research. But in general, if the value lies in the CE, you're not going to be able to charge very much for it. $50, $25, $50, maybe $100. If the value lies in the information, you can charge quite a bit more. And so with my CE business, some of my courses are $3,000 or $4,000 because if you take the course, you're literally going to get a blueprint on how to start a robust functional medicine practice, like you're going to get a blueprint on how to start a very profitable business. That's worth a lot of money, right? Learning how to manage someone's blood pressure, that's worth $50. So like it really just depends on kind of what you're teaching. The Pro Course Start Blueprint, which is the course I have now where I teach people how to start these CE businesses, I charge $1,000 for it. It's a blueprint on how to build $1 million CE business. And so, you could go buy another course creation course, how to start a course business for what, $100, but does it teach you how to do CE? So it just really lies in the value.
And then as far as how many credits are attached to each course, is that something you decide, or does somebody else decide that, or how do you figure that out?
They usually give you like an equation. I mean, it's just kind of like a basic, how many hours of lecture is there? And then how many hours of like additional study might there be? And so like, if say the course is 4 hours long, let's say that, you hire a lawyer to do this course for you. Say you're not a lawyer. You just want to create a legal CE business. You hire a lawyer. They do 4 hours of lecture for you. And then there might be an hour or two of some additional resources that you attach to it, some PDFs, some things like that. You can just have ChatGPT kind of create for you. Boom. So 4 hours of lecture and then an estimated 2 hours of additional self-study. 6 hours of CE.
So I'm curious. So if someone outside of this CEU kind of course space is going to sell a program for like $3,000, they would typically sell that on a sales call, or they'd have some sort of webinar that sells it and that sort of thing. Is that the same here? Is it different? Like, what's the sales mechanism, if you will?
I never had a single webinar or sales call at all at the Elite Nurse Practitioner, not one time. Like, I've never done that before. I've done that with Pro Course Start because I'm targeting business people, not very necessarily a professional. And I don't offer CE and Pro Course Start because it's just business education, right? But with the Elite Nurse Practitioner, I never had a webinar. I never had a sales call with a single person ever. If you can verbalize the value proposition in your videos and your articles and your content, and if they land on that landing page and they see that what they're going to get, you break down the curriculum for them and whatnot, they're either going to want it or they're not. So you can go down that route, do the sales calls and the webinars. I mean, that is something that you can do for sure, but it's generally not necessary with a CE business.
So are you putting together like a long form sales page or like a VSL on a sales page? Or
Yeah, just more or less, medium kind of, not super long, but a basic sales page that goes over the benefits of it, goes over the problem, a quick little video, maybe like a sneak peek of the course, maybe the first 10 or 15 minutes. The curriculum, how much the price is, just things like that, just a basic sales page, but, for a CE business. So developing a sales page for a regular course, like it's just a course business course, and a CE business, it's really not that different. It's kind of the same thing. You outline the problem. What does this course solve? The only thing that's different is how many CE hours are attached to it. That's pretty much the only other thing you really got to add to it.
so I think one of the biggest challenges in the general courses and coaching space is traffic and leads, getting this in front of enough people that you can consistently be making sales, you can hit your revenue goals, you can grow and do what you want to do. What are you seeing you work well when it comes to traffic sources, when it comes to where leads are coming from for the CEU course side of this?
So different professions are going to have different levels of saturation. There are some professions out there where the CE education business is very unsaturated. So like if you got into some of those markets, you would be kind of one of the first people in on it. And so generating leads wouldn't be all that difficult. If you get into something like nursing, for example, that's a little bit more saturated. And so the lead generation for this, I feel like it comes down to your content first and foremost, just like, a majority of other businesses in the online space. You have to produce content on a very regular basis because professionals are going to be very weary, untrusting of you. And so establishing your authority and establishing your credibility in this space is absolutely critical. Like, you can't just pretend to be some online guru. You actually have to truly prove that you are an authority in this space, that you do have the credibility to be teaching other professionals what it is that you're teaching. And so you really have to establish that. And the only way you do that is through a lot of free, consistent, valuable content. If you want to create a CE business, you really should be posting something 3 or 4 times a week minimum. A couple articles and a couple videos or something. And then if you record a 10-minute video, you can splice that up into some reels or whatever and post on Instagram and YouTube, etc. But you have to establish yourself as the authoritative figure. And you kind of want to get off social media as much as you possibly can and build that email list. Professionals do check their email on a very regular basis. And so they will subscribe to your email list if you are providing value, if you are actually giving them some content that actually helps them without giving away your course, then they'll subscribe.
With your email list, how often are you emailing them?
3 to 5 times a week. It is a very, very consistent game. You have to be consistent. You have to be whispering in these people's ears all the time, or they're going to forget about you. So I would say that with the Elite Nurse Practitioner, all I did was articles. I never really made videos for that business up until recently. But for the first 3 or 4 years of that business, when it became an 8-figure business, I didn't create one video. It was just all articles. And we would email an article 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And so it could be 300 words. It could just be a quick little tip or something, you know what I mean? It could be something that's 1,000 words. So it's just very, very consistent content, emailing them on a very regular basis. And what's amazing is that you will not see unsubscribe rates and stuff with a CE business like you would with a traditional course business or a traditional e-commerce business. You're just not going to, because they actually want to open the email up because the content's valuable. It actually helps them in their profession. You know what I mean? Like, you give them a tip, they actually might use that tip that day at work.
Yeah. When we come to, shooting videos and articles and all this kind of stuff, if you've hired someone to be your expert and you aren't the expert, what does that really look like then when you're having to create a lot of content for lawyers when you're not a lawyer and you hired someone to help you with the course, but you're running the business and the marketing?
That's a fantastic question. So with the Elite Nurse Practitioner, the other CE business that I have, I stopped actually creating content a few years ago, really. We just hire people to do it for us. You just contract out people. And so if you are someone wanting to start a CE business in a certain profession and you're not that professional, you would just need to contract out some people to do that for you. Or you can utilize AI to produce a lot of this information for you if you can have someone who's knowledgeable in the space create a project file for you in ChatGPT, upload a bunch of information into it so that way they can speak in the voice of that professional. And then you can just have AI produce a lot of that content for you. And so it's a real game changer now. So yeah, so you just contract out someone and you don't have to pay them that much money. I mean, you can pay them $50 an article or something like that, which might sound like a lot of money, but when you're generating $100,000 a month, it's really not that much money.
And then with your email list, how often are you emailing them about new course offerings and things like that? Are you sprinkling that in there within your content that you're emailing out as well?
Yeah, so both really, right? So you'll always kind of sprinkle in some of the, some sales into your content, right? So like, let's say you're writing an article about a specific topic and you just released a course that is related to that topic. Well, then obviously plug it into it, right? I mean, why wouldn't you? But outside of that though, I would create a course almost on a monthly basis, a 4 to 6 hour CE course. And then we would have a sales event. And so every single time we launched a course, it would go live for 1 to 2 weeks at a 25% discount. And then we would make sure in the copy to say, after this date, the price indefinitely increases to $499 instead of $359 or whatever it is. And so we would just send that out. And yeah, we would do that almost on a monthly basis. But even during those sales events, they would still receive the content. So if we launched the sales event on Monday, they'd still receive the content Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday with, a couple emails here or there, 4 days left, 3 days left, that kind of a thing. And so with CE businesses, I don't know in general, like general course businesses, I don't know what the sales numbers are based off the first day of a sales event and the last day. But with a CE business, it's very U-shaped. So the first day of the sale, you get a lot of sales and then it kind of dies off a little bit. And then the last day is usually your best day. You just get a huge influx in sales. People are impulsive. They want the discount. So
Yeah, I'd say with us selling online courses, we would absolutely notice spikes whenever there was a deadline. So usually when we're doing a live webinar, right on the webinar is where we have a big spike in sales, or before the end of the day, whenever the fast action bonuses end. And then there would usually be a day or two, so we could get replay viewers and things like that, where we'd have another set of bonuses that would expire. And then whenever we sent out the emails for that, say, hey, bonuses are expiring, we'd see another big jump in sales. And then several days after that, we might close the cart and say, hey, the special price is disappearing and you're going to lose your discount and blah, blah, blah. That's when we would have the last jump in sales, is right before we close the cart. So yeah, we definitely see those spikes whenever those deadlines came and we sent out those emails. So with your sales, do you find most of those are coming from your email list, or are those coming from ads, or where are you getting most of your sales from?
So most of the sales for a CE business, it's going to be on a specific time frame. When you first launch the CE business, the majority of your sales are going to be coming from ads that you put on Meta, as an example. You really haven't built that audience quite yet. So after about 6 to 12 months of continuously building that audience, you should always have some kind of lead magnet, some kind of email opt-in, right? And you're promoting that on YouTube and Meta and Instagram and LinkedIn, et cetera. Like, you're promoting that lead magnet to get those people to subscribe to your email list in exchange for, some free little PDF or whatever. And so over a period of 6 to 12 months, your email list should go from, 0 to, in the first year, probably at least 10,000 people. And these people are usually high intent buyers. They're not tire kickers. So they're very, very high intent. And so after that initial year of just building out that audience, what you will find is that 50% of your sales will come from that email list, which is completely free. I mean, you invested into, getting those leads, but once they're on your email list, it becomes your most valuable asset. You'll get about 50% of your sales just from email. And then I found that probably another 25% is just pretty much organic. People just see the sales event that you post on your Instagram page, and then the other 25% comes from some paid traffic. So what we found that works the best is having a large sales event around a holiday. That's what we find to really, really hit. And so holiday sales events and then end of the year sales events, because most professionals, especially higher net worth ones, people who make $100,000 plus a year, they really want a tax write-off. So if you have an end of the year sales event in the last week, they need that. They just, if I can get one more tax write-off or whatever, I will. I'm a lawyer that makes $500,000 a year. What's a $1,000 course to me? They don't care. It's a write-off for them. Or their continuing education stipend that they get from their employer expires. It's use it or lose it. And so at the very end of the year, if they have $700 left of their stipend, they want to spend that. So have an end of the year sales event. So what we found is that holiday sales events really, really hit well. Black Friday, I made over $1 million in 4 days around Black Friday with the CE business. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, I was able to pay my house off one Black Friday.
What kind of a discount are you giving for those holiday events?
Yeah, those are the big So Black Friday is the biggest sales event of the year. Just go with it, right? 30% off, 35% off, something like that. So what we typically do is we'd have like a VIP email opt-in. And so for 2 weeks prior to Black Friday, we would send out these ads on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Sign up to our VIP email list for special VIP discounts on Black Friday. Get 400 or 500 people to subscribe to that. Those people would get 35% off. And then anyone who didn't subscribe starting Thursday would just get the standard 30% off. And then that would extend for 3 or 4 days. Cyber Monday have a special offer, Tuesday have its, special offer or whatever. So yeah, just about 30% off. And then most other holidays, Labor Day, Memorial Day, whatever, 20% off, 25% off. And then what we found is that the majority of our sales come during those sales events. That's where you make the majority of your income for the year, is during those sales events. Yeah. And then it kind of trickles off. So like, let's say 4th of July, you have a sales event. boom, make $150,000 in 2 days, boom, $150,000. And then you go back to your just baseline of $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a day.
This has been such an amazing conversation, Justin. Thank you so much for being with us today. If people want to check you out, where should they head?
Yeah, go to www.procoursestart.com. That's my new website. That's my new business. I've kind of gotten out of the CE business more or less to teach people how to start their own CE businesses. I want to help people build 7, 8-figure businesses, not just a medical practice. So that's kind of where I've gone. So procoursestart.com. If you want to go to procoursestart.com/podcast/DT for Digital Trailblazers, give you a discount on the Procore Start Blueprint. You subscribe to our email list and check us out there. And then I'm on social media too, on Facebook, Instagram. Just look up Procore Start, or Justin Montgomery as well.
Wonderful. We'll have all the links in the show notes and description. Thank you so much, Justin.
Awesome. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. The strategies and earnings mentioned by our guests represent their individual experiences and results. Nothing shared on this show should be considered a guarantee of earnings or success. The views, opinions, and claims expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official views of the Digital Trailblazer podcast or its hosts. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute professional, financial, legal, or business advice. Please do your own research and consult with qualified professionals before making any business decisions.